everyone and welcome to Lauren Loves Color. This is Lauren. I'm here to do like a color and chat and just kind of catch up. I have not done one of these in a very, very long time, and I'm going to turn my computer sound down because I just am too lazy to shut my computer down. So I thought we would just jump into it and just kind of dive in. I haven't talked to you guys in a long time, and so today I don't really have anything on the agenda that I really want or need to color, so I thought like I'd just pick something kind of random and fun. I really like this book. This is actually one of the Dollar Tree books. It's Kick Back and Color by Number Animals to Music, Volume 2. And so this one I don't know, it just kind of called to me. So I haven't picked a page yet. Let's see. I thought I really liked this little armadillo guy. And there's the monkey, the little snail, the octopus. The bear, he's pretty cute. Aw, the doggy's really cute with the little hearts. Not really feeling something with water right now. I really feel like I want to do something else. Like I like the little toucan guy too. Oh, the llama's really cute. Kind of going between the llama and the armadillo. Let's do the armadillo. I'm from Texas. I feel like the armadillo just kind of calls to me. So what's nice about these are from the Dollar Tree, but they're all single-sided. So they are nice because you can actually use alcohol markers on these, and it's got a pretty simple color palette here on the left hand side, so we're just going to kind of go for it. Let's start with the armadillo himself. Let's do him. Looks like he is largely numbers 16 and 17, so that's black and gray. So one of my things is I don't usually use black. I usually use I'll do a gray and a dark gray. So let's see here. Where's my swatch book? I am not prepared. Let's see. Let's do a warm gray. Let's do warm gray 5 and warm gray 7. Because I don't use warm gray a lot. And this is also a really good way for me just to kind of use up some of my markers. My Cali Art marker set that I'm using, this is the 100 set of Cali Art markers. This has kind of been my ride or die. This is the marker set I recommend for anybody who's brand new into coloring and wants to use alcohol markers. I love Cali Art. I love Ohuhus as well, but Ohuhus are a bit more expensive. I think because they're more largely found, and this set has lasted me for over a year. Now, a lot of them have dried up. I have a backup set that's sitting right next to me that I can use in case some of mine do dry up, but yeah. So so what we're gonna do too, and what I kind of want to show today is some people wanted me to show how I do my outlining technique, kind of to make it look more like stained glass or for shading. And so I thought also something very simple like this might be a really good opportunity for me to show you how I do that. So let's go ahead and jump in. So we'll start with number 16, which is supposedly black. We're going to use warm gray 7 for number 16. And we're just gonna go. So how's everybody doing? I hope you had a great holiday. Got to spend some good time with family and friends, or just some nice quiet time and time away from work or responsibilities. I had a really good but very busy holiday season. I've mentioned it so many times now that I'm like, I need to just stop talking about it, but you can tell I don't upload nearly as much as I used to. And that's just because life has gotten really busy for me. Work, I will say, has taken up a lot of that. There's a lot of things going on with work right now that I won't bore you with all the details, but it's a lot of good things and bad things. I had a period of time in October where I had to cover for my partner who was out on leave for a month. So I had a lot going on, and then since she has gotten back, it just doesn't seem like the work has slowed down. Like there's just been a lot going on. But then also I've had some additional good opportunities within work that have popped up that I'm exploring, which is all good. Opportunities for promotion. So I'm just trying to be patient with the process and see what happens there. Also, my husband had a really big opportunity as well. Unfortunately, that didn't end up working out, but we were out of town for that. And yeah. Right now, what we're focused on is we are going to be making some home improvements. So one of the things on our list, the big thing on my list, and something I've wanted from the very beginning of my time since we built this house back in 2013, was to update the flooring. So we built this house back in 2013, and I wanted to, the builder would not, or had really kind of, I guess, like really egregiously large prices on hardwood floors. And we have 2 cats. We knew we wanted kids. I was like, I don't really want hardwood. They didn't really sell much in between. I don't think they did laminate or anything like that, but also the prices were just absolutely ridiculous. So what we did is when we built the house, we bought kind of like the cheapest floor that you could get. So we got carpet and tile. I think we got pretty nice tile, but we got really pretty basic carpet. Well, you can imagine, like, so there's carpet all throughout most of the first floor of my house, all throughout the entryway, dining room area, things like that. And so you can imagine with 2 kids, and now having lived in this house for, you know, really about, I guess, 8 years, it's taken a beating. So we are going to be ripping all of that out on the first floor and getting new flooring. We opted actually to go for luxury plank vinyl instead of going with hardwood, largely because we do still have 2 small children. We do have 2 pets. And so I need something really that has really good waterproof tendencies, and it was actually was a little bit shocked at how nice the luxury plank vinyl looks. Like you really can't tell, like, to the naked eye that it looks any different than hardwood. It's actually not that much cheaper than hardwood, but it's still fairly reasonably priced. It can get really expensive though. So that's what we've decided to install in the house. So I just had the estimator come out today and take the measurements. And so when we've picked out what color we want, which is kind of like a natural oak looking color, we have fairly light walls, and then so we've kind of like, you know, a light, I would say very light tan or light cream colored walls throughout the majority of the house. And we have very dark furniture, so almost black. I mean, almost like I guess let me show you this table. You kind of see how dark it is. That's the color of most of our furniture. So we needed a light floor. So we found one that we really like, and so we're going to get that installed in the house. So I will be waiting on the estimate from the flooring company, and then we will schedule to order and do the install. So I'm hoping that we do that. We're kind of hoping maybe that we can do that in March. It's going to be a massive project because we have to pack up really a lot of things in the house. You know, take things off of bookshelves. We're gonna have to take stuff out of our refrigerator, all that stuff, and probably relocate for about a week while they install it. So what we will probably do, so we live with my father-in-law. My father-in-law is elderly. He's not really able to care completely 100% for himself, so he lives with us. well, we're not doing anything to change the flooring in his area, but he's not really going to be able to get around and like just go to the kitchen and get stuff, and there's going to be things, you know, all over the floor, and it's going to be dirty and all sorts of stuff. So it's really hard to move him and relocate him. So we're kind of figuring out what to do. Like, can he stay in a hotel, you know, with us, or what do we do? And we've kind of thought too about, well, maybe my husband stays here and stays upstairs. We have an upstairs where we kind of have like a 1.5 story house. So maybe my husband can stay upstairs and kind of just bring him meals and everything. My father-in-law lives in kind of a suite, so he has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom to himself. So he really stays in his room, other than he goes for a walk once a day and he comes out to eat. Well, he has a little mini fridge in his room, so we can stock some snacks and things in there. And we even potentially can move a microwave in there if we need to. But also my husband may stay at the house, but stay upstairs and, you know, help bring him meals and, you know, go sit and talk with him, keep him company and stuff while all of this is going on for a week. And I may stay at my parents' house and bring my kids with me and stay with my parents. So we're kind of talking that through, but we really kind of need to know how long they think it's going to take. In our minds, we think it's going to take a week. They may say like, oh no, it's only 3 to 4 days. Or they may say it's like, oh no, this is like a 2-week project. And so depending upon the length of time that we have to vacate our house will also change our plans. Also, my mom is having knee surgery, and so next week, and so that also impacts things too with our timeline and whether or not we would stay at my mom's house, just dependent upon what we would have to do, whether or not we could actually even stay at my parents' house or not. So that's really largely what's taken up a lot of my time. Also, we are planning on taking our first trip. The first one that we will be taking in a very long time, due to COVID and then just the busyness of just having 2 young kids. We are going to Las Vegas with 2 of our friends for a board game convention. Yes, you heard that correct. My husband and I, our hobby together has always been board gaming. And so we like to play what they call gateway games, which are like, you know, 45 to 60 minute games that have light to moderate strategy. So if you're familiar with things like Ticket to Ride or Settlers of Catan, any of those would be kind of right along the same lines of what we normally play. So my husband's really big with the board game community, and so we used to, every single year, always go to a board game conventions. And so it's like a really good opportunity where you can not only just like play some games, but get to know other people. They usually have fun, you know, contests and activities, and just kind of a fun convention to go to every year. They have a big one called Gen Con in Indianapolis. That's the biggest one in the United States that happens every year. We're going to, it's Dice Tower Con West, I think is what it's called. And it's hosted by the Dice Tower, which if you ever look for board game reviews, the Dice Tower is a really big social media YouTube presence. Started by a man named Tom Vassell, who was a teacher actually overseas. Now I think he runs Dice Tower, which has now become this massive, this really massive online presence and brand. He does that full time now, I believe. So yeah, so we're gonna go do that. We're gonna go to Vegas. So that's gonna happen at the end of February. So we'll be gone for about a week, a little over a week. or no, we'll be gone for exactly a week, and then I took like an extra day off. I always feel like before I go back to work, I need like a vacation from my vacation, and I always need a day or two to like, you know, do laundry, just organize my life, like feel like I can get ready to come back to work, because especially if you're off work for like a week, I can't even imagine the number of emails I'm gonna have and things that I need to follow up on. It's just like when you take a vacation, it's a vacation, but it's not, because you still usually end up coming back to just a ton of stuff you have to do. So, but I do plan on getting the opportunity to just disconnect from work and just really focus on myself and my family. So my kids are actually, though, going to go stay with their grandparents, which are my parents, and then we'll get to have fun. I am slightly worried because my mom is having knee surgery this next Friday, whether or not she's going to be up to taking care of my kids. But she did say she's going to get some help. And my dad's there. He can help too. So I did tell her I'm going to talk to her babysitter and see if maybe she can come over and help my mom on some of the days that my dad has to be to work early, or, you know, how we can kind of make it work if my mom is still not totally 100% better. It's a little day surgery. She tore her meniscus. She said like she was frustrated because I think she was like literally doing nothing, but it just kind of started hurting. Apparently it happens as you get older. These things can happen, and she tore it in just the right spot that it can't be fixed by an injection. She has to have a minor procedure and some pretty long physical therapy. So yeah, so she's going to be focused on doing that. I'm not used to my mom not being able to get around. My mom has always been one of those, she's like envious of her because she's always in like really fantastic shape. She eats well, she exercises, she's always just had a very resilient body. She's like, you know, hardly ever sick. One of those people I strive to be one day, that's for sure. I was like, I wish I had her genetics more than I do, because I largely got my dad's genes, and I definitely have to work to have a non-plus size figure, that's for sure. Which, speaking of, I guess I'll give you a little bit of an update on my dieting. So towards the end of last year, I had some of my goals to really start doing Weight Watchers, which was kind of a, you know, scary venture for me. But I knew I needed to do it. I knew, like, largely that my health, I needed to do something. Okay, hold on, let's see. What do I want to do next? Let's do, well, these two are number 5. What's number 5? Pink. So I knew I needed to really start working on my health. You know, I'm done having kids. I really don't have an excuse anymore to not take care of myself other than just being busy. And I kept seeing the scale going up, like, I mean, going up and going up and going up, and it wasn't coming down. When I had my son's now 4. When I had him, I lost my baby weight really quickly. And so I kind of assumed the same thing would happen with my daughter. Well, when I had my daughter, it was in 2020 during the middle of the pandemic. And I did lose a lot of my baby weight really quickly, but then rebounded and it kind of got worse. Like, it just, my body didn't snap back like it had with my son. Let's see, dark orange. Let's do 26. So I I kept seeing the numbers on the scale going up, and I just had kind of like this moment of where I felt totally out of control of my body. Like I legitimately felt like I needed help. And, most of you guys know I'm a nurse. I have my RN license, an active nurse, and I felt embarrassed because it's one of those things like, I help try to guide and help patients, and I felt like I was a hypocrite, and I felt like if I couldn't get my own body under control, like, I don't know, I just didn't feel good about it. So, sorry, I need the color orange. So I had a bit of a breakdown, like where I just remember crying with my husband and just being, just kind of woe is me, just being really upset about my body and about the situation. And my husband's amazing. He really just encouraged me, like, maybe you need to talk to the people that, you trust the most and kind of figure out what to do. And so I told him, I said, I feel like my hormones are not right. I feel like my body's just not the same. And so he really encouraged me, go talk to your doctors. So I had a meeting with my OB-GYN, and I talked to her about it. I have PCOS, which is a disorder that is impacted by your hormones, which can cause things like infertility, but also one of the things too is that it can cause not weight gain, but I think it makes it harder for you to lose weight. And so I talked to my doctor. She was wonderful in listening to my thoughts and feelings about the situation. And she didn't really have the solution for me other than just to encourage me that, there are options out there, and that I really needed to talk to my primary care physician about some potential alternate treatments. Well, one of the things that she mentioned too was, have you thought about weight loss surgery? And when she had that conversation with me, I just kind of broke down because I was like, I can't believe that I'm at the point to where my doctor is legitimately talking to me about, surgical intervention for my weight. It's not that I've ever been like the skinniest person in my entire life by no stretch of the imagination, but I've never had my weight to the point to where I really felt like it was that out of control. So I scheduled an appointment with my primary care physician, who I adore, and I talked to her about it, and I said, I want to come and talk to you. So we looked over my medications. I'm not on a ton of medications, but we looked over my medications. She made an adjustment to one medication I take related to my PCOS, and then sorry, I think I'm going to use some of these colors. And then she made that one minor kind of modification, and then she just said, she really encouraged me to kind of say, you don't want to do weight loss surgery, you don't have a lot of comorbidities, and really you should try a diet plan. She said, and a surgeon's not going to operate on you to do weight loss surgery until they can really see that you've really made substantial tries to improve your own health without surgical intervention. So I'm like, okay. So I started thinking about what programs I wanted to use. And I really wanted something that gave me some flexibility. I didn't want something that had such a specific eating plan that didn't have such a specific eating plan that I felt like I was really limited. And I wanted something that was going to be affordable and sustainable. So I looked into a lot of different things. And one of the programs I had done when I was younger, like in high school, was I did Weight Watchers. It was a point-based system. It was fairly easy to understand. And so I decided maybe that's the program for me. But also at the time I had a couple of employees who would talk to me about their weight loss journey, and they too used Weight Watchers and were very successful at losing weight on Weight Watchers. So I decided to join. So I started, I think, in the end of August joining, and really took my time to get to know the program. It can definitely be overwhelming at first, I'll tell you that. just trying to figure out how the points work, you know, really trying to be active with your logging every day and making that commitment. But I was like, you know, I've got to try to do this. And I kind of figured give it, you know, a month and just see where I'm at. Well, now I'm many months down the road, and I will tell you that I have now lost a total of about 45 pounds. I think I'm like maybe less than a pound away from hitting 45 pounds. And it's changed. It's like, I know it sounds kind of silly and stupid, but it's legitimately changed my life. I have so much more energy. I legitimately can tell you that's one of the first things that I noticed going on the diet was how much my energy changed. I don't feel hungry anymore. I'm not bloating anymore. I've dropped 2 pant sizes and at least 2 or 3 sizes in my top. And I've had to kind of get used to now shopping in like non-plus size clothes. It seems really foreign to me because I haven't done that in so long. And it's really, it legitimately has changed and transformed my life. It's been really, really good for me. 9:45. Sorry, I'm trying to see what I want to do next. So I just encourage you to take that first step. I'm not saying that it's for everybody, and I'm not saying Weight Watchers is for everybody, and I'm not saying you need to, or anybody needs to lose weight. I think weight loss is your own personal journey, and you have to be mentally ready and prepared to make that step. And I can tell you for a long time mentally I wasn't quite there. But I also think too, like, I don't know if you're like me or have a situation like me, but like my husband has never really had to lose weight. Really ever in his life. He's always been not only blessed with good genetics for his weight, but also he just doesn't have the same coping mechanism like a food like I do. And food has always been a coping mechanism for me, an unhealthy one for sure. And so he hasn't struggled with making, you know, with the decisions and those types of things like I have. So talking to him sometimes, while he is so helpful and really cares about me at any size that I am, and I legitimately feel like he legitimately loves me no matter how much I weigh and what the scale says. He too wants me to feel beautiful. He wants me to feel confident in myself, and that's what impacts him the most. And he really encouraged me to talk to the people, you know, that I really felt like could influence some of my decision making, which to me were my physicians. As a nurse, I feel like I needed to talk to somebody medical about the situation, and so that was my physicians, and they were absolutely 100% a key part of me making that move for positive change in my life. So don't be afraid, you know, find whoever that confidant is. And I think the biggest part of me wanting to go down this journey with weight loss was just like legitimately admitting that I had a problem with my weight and that it was out of my control. And that is really hard to say and to admit because I consider myself a fairly confident person. And to say that, and I've always felt like, you know, I've been in control of my life. So to say that there was something that I didn't have control over was very hard for me to admit, but it was really true. So I continue that. If you're curious, I don't have an exercise program. I don't commit to doing a certain number of minutes of exercise per day. And largely my schedule is what keeps me from doing that. But I can tell you I'm pretty active having 2 small kids. And having lost weight makes me more active. So used to before, like on the weekends, my husband was always the one to take my kids to the birthday parties, to the park, to do all those things. And now largely I help out a lot with that, and I'm able to give my husband a little bit of a break. And I love that now. I love that I'm able to now pitch in more than I used to, because before it was like, not only was it that I didn't have the energy, but I didn't want to be out in public. I didn't want people to see me. And I hated every minute of having to put regular street clothes on, because I'd work clothes that fit me because Monday through Friday I'm at work. But for like just going out clothes and stuff, I didn't have a lot of stuff that fit, and I was too embarrassed to go buy clothes that were a size that I never wanted to be. So it sounds really silly, but it's really true. I'm sure many of you can relate to the mental gymnastics you play when you're overweight. It just sucks. And for anybody who's in that situation, like I get it. I've been plus size very big portion of my adult life. And honestly, like now having a normal size body, that sounds really kind of ridiculous to say, because of course any body can be a normal body, but to have the body the size and shape that I do now feels really foreign to me. I almost feel like I have to relearn how to shop for my body. And I feel like it's harder than it was before, because I think when you're plus size, you have a lot less options. And there were always like, my few like staple stores that I always went to, and online stores. And now it's like, oh, well, crap. Well, they don't carry my size anymore. So where am I going to find something that's my size? So I'm kind of having to go out and explore a little bit more. And with COVID, it's a little bit harder. I know you're probably sitting here crying like, oh my gosh, you just shop for smaller clothes, but it's a little bit stressful, but it's just something I have to get used to. And I cleaned out my closet. I went through all the clothes that don't fit me anymore. I bought a whole bunch of new clothes, pretty much an entire new wardrobe of clothes, and really excited about that, because and I was a little bit like, well, maybe I should just hold on to him or whatever. And so my husband kind of convinced me, like, he said, let's find somebody who could really benefit from them, because a lot of the clothes, though, even if I hadn't lost the weight I needed to get rid of, which were a lot of my maternity clothes, well, they were all really nice. Like I had suits and a lot of professional attire because of my work. And so, I was slightly hesitant to get rid of some of that stuff, but my husband found a women's shelter kind of close by that was looking for clothes. And so I was like, okay, well, I feel really good about that, because I know that there's probably lots of these moms and women who could use some of these clothes, and especially if they're going for interviews or working, to have some nice professional attire to wear. So I felt good about that. And yeah. So I cleaned out my clothes. I got a whole bunch of new clothes, which were really fun. The only thing is I'm a little bit sad, because some of my new clothes are even starting to feel a little bit like large on me. Because now I feel like, kind of the less you weigh, losing even the smaller amount of weight makes a bigger difference on how things fit you. But one thing that was even a shock to me was the amount of new shoes that I had to buy. So being overweight, I think, and with the stuff that I was eating, my feet were like, swollen. And so I actually had to buy some new shoes that fit my feet. So yeah. But my weight loss goal from the start was to lose 100 pounds So as you can tell, I still have a ways to go. I'm almost to my halfway point. So I'm at about 45 pounds. So hopefully by next month I will be down to 50 pounds officially, and continue on to lose weight. And I know at some point it'll get harder, like that my amount of weight loss per week will be more difficult, but at least for right now I'm pretty consistently where I lose between 1 and 2 pounds a week. Now usually there's about 1 week out of the month, which is, you know, every woman's special month, where I don't lose any weight. But then usually the week after that is one of my biggest weight loss weeks of the month. So I know that enough now to have that tracked. And I guess that's all I have to say about that. What do you guys think of this picture? What's interesting is that they have like this, I guess what's gonna be like the sand and stuff with a number, but they don't have the sky numbered, which I find very interesting. So what I think I'm going to do, gosh, all these marker colors look a lot darker on this paper. Now this is, I will tell you, the paper that comes on here is not very good. It's not very high quality, but yeah, that still looks really good. So here's what I think we're gonna do. I think I'm going to, because I don't think I'm going to use marker for the sky and for the rest of the ground. I think maybe I'll use some marker here. Let's use, it calls for light brown. Let's do 713 right here. So I'm going to do this section of it here. But I don't think I'm going to use, I'm going to use this on the actual part that like looks like sand. And so what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to use crayon to color the sand in the sky. And I do some of that a lot just because I don't want to use up all of my alcohol marker. And also too, when you're going around a lot of these little small areas, I don't like the look of alcohol marker because it can end up getting streaky looking. And then that's just not cute. So crayon works just fine. You guys all know I love the use of crayon for shading and those types of things, so. Okay. So I think that's all that I'm going to do in alcohol marker. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do some crayon, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you guys some of my shading technique that I use. See if you find that helpful. So I'm going to do a little bit of a fast forward quick thing, and I'll see you right back. All right, so this page has been through a lot. Sorry, let me adjust my camera here and make you a little bit more straight. This page has been through a lot. So let me explain to you what I did, because if you watch the little time-lapse thing, you might be like, what the hell did you do? So I tried to use crayon on this, and I had forgotten this paper is super, super smooth. So therefore the crayon doesn't lay down very well. Like, crayon does really well on Amazon paper. It does not like this paper. Like, it just does not. I think I actually have another page where I used crayon and was like, oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, like even here I can tell like it just didn't lay well. And so, but I do remember a trick where sometimes if you use alcohol marker, it can blend the pigment a little bit with crayon. So I tried just using like my colorless blender and doing that all over. It looked a little bit better, but not a ton. And so then I was like, okay, let's just color the sky with alcohol marker, which I did, but my alcohol marker was running out. So I had to go get another one, a backup, and finish it. And then did that, and then came back and started using alcohol marker on the ground, and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks splotchy, like trying to use alcohol marker over crayon. But then I went back with my colorless blender and kind of went over all of it again to kind of blend it in a little bit more, and I'm happy with it. I think it sort of looks like sand or ground. If this was anything other than ground, I'd probably scrap the whole page, but I actually think it looks okay. So I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't end up having to delete this entire video with all of the work that I've just done on this. But you know, it's one of those things too, and one of those life lessons that not everything is going to turn out how you want it to. And so it's about trying to do the best that you can with what you have. Lesson learned for everybody. So let's talk a little bit about shading real quick. So you can do this with alcohol marker, you can do this with crayon. I've done both, but actually what I've used somewhat recently and have become obsessed with using for this technique are water markers, water-based markers. I have 2 of these sets of Ohuhus. It's a really long story. But basically I got kind of a faulty set, and so they sent me a whole nother brand new set of this. These are their water brush markers. They have a brush nib on one end, and they are all numbered. They don't have a color name, but they are all numbered, and they have a brush tip on one side, and they have a like ultra fine tip. Can you see that? Like an ultra fine tip on the other side. So, these I do use for like bubble family, like if I do like cross stitch method, things like that, but I use them for various things. But I just kind of pulled these out and was like, I wonder what it's like to do these, use these for shading. And I really like them, and the reason being is because they are, and here's like all the colors if you want to look. This is the 120 set. What I like about it is water markers are slightly more opaque, not opaque, the opposite. They're slightly more translucent. And so they actually let the original color underneath shine through a little bit more, whereas alcohol marker is much more opaque. So if you have a color that doesn't match very well to shade, that's darker and things like that, it's harder to fix. So I usually, so sometimes I have really good matches for shading, sometimes I don't. I don't really overly obsess about it, but it's a thing. Because these are a little more translucent, they kind of blend more into the alcohol marker that's underneath, per se. And it also gives a less harsh line when you go over something. So we're gonna try to go over, we're gonna do these greens first, that are in this image. Let's try to do, let's start with the darkest and work our way up. So for the dark color, I'm gonna need something pretty dang dark. I'm almost gonna need a, and what you can always use too if you don't have something that's dark enough in that color is to use a gray. So I'm gonna use maybe number 21. Let's see how 21 looks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over, and what I like to do with these is I just follow the lines, the actual line work, and just do outlines. It's almost like, you know, like when you used to color with crayons as a kid, if you would color like the outlines real dark and then kind of color it in. It's the same idea. Sometimes people ask me like, well, do you use a lighter color to do the color by number and then shade with kind of what would be the standard color that you would use? And I do that sometimes, but not all the time. Usually I'm pretty lazy, and so I just color with whatever color I want to, and I can usually find a darker marker. So I don't know if you can tell, but I gave that like a little bit of something. I could, if I really wanted to get more contrast, I could probably go even one shade darker than this to go over some of the cactuses, cacti. Yeah, I really liked using alcohol markers, and these Ohuhu ones have a pretty nice like shade range. So yeah, and so, with some things, obviously with darker things, it's harder for the shading to show up. When we get to the lighter colors, you'll see it's a lot easier. Okay, so let's go number 10 next. I'm gonna choose, and I mean, you really can choose whatever color you want. I'm gonna go for like a number 64, which is like a almost dark teal. The hardest thing is because there's so dang many of these, they're hard to find. They do come in this case as well, which is also really nice. Can you all see that? Yeah, let's zoom it up a bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So even with this, if I wanted to, I could probably go a little bit darker. But we're not going to today because I'm too lazy to do it. And I've got some crayon that kind of ran over. Let me get my electric eraser. I don't know if any of y'all know this. You can erase crayon. If you ever go over a little bit, you can totally fix it. Alright, so that's what it looks like there. Let's do this one. Number 10. And I usually am fairly basic in that I shade with just kind of the color that would be darker than the color that's underneath. But you can also shade and make these shadows with other colors. So you can, for example, I could shade these in blue. And I have done that before multiple times. Like if I just wanted something that was a slightly more contrasting color. I do that with crayons a lot. It just kind of depends upon what effect you're looking for. People say coloring is your own. You find your own style and what works for you. I've literally had people send me like, what color would you use to shade for this? And I'm always like, pick whatever color you want. There's no rules. And it's really hard to kind of tell some of that stuff over just pictures on an iPhone or whatever. Like just play around, just practice, and if you don't like what you did, just change it. 67. So that's how I roll, and I'm not perfect. So there's no real rules. If you're someone that is a rule-based person, or you want to know what it is, the color combinations that I use, I actually have in my link tree down below. I have some color charts that will tell you for kind of the bigger color by number publishers what colors I use. And on the one that's for Such and Such Diva, I have a one column that says like outline matches or something, or outline markers. And it'll tell you in my Cali Art set what I use to do the darker outline. So that is there for you. So if you really are that rigid in wanting to just use what I use, I did put that there so that you can use it. And a lot of times when you do these shading techniques and things too, is sometimes I will do it a little bit darker and bolder, because on camera, like when you're photographing it, if the shades are really similar to the shade underneath, you don't see the shadows as much. So because I am a YouTube person, I may pick colors that look really good photographed, but in person they might look a little too bold for your liking. So ultimately you do whatever makes you happy and whatever it is that you're satisfied with. So I think you can see that kind of gives it some more depth and dimension. Let's do these yellow parts next. So I do like to do a lot of shading with yellow. I like to use a lot of orange type colors or colors with an orange undertone. Choose number 28. This right here. Because I do find that in order for the shading to show up on a lot of the yellow, you do have to typically use orange. On orange, sometimes I'll do a lot of red colors. No, I think it's just not showing up that well. They're okay. They're ones that I bet they look a bit better in person than they do on camera. Again, I just follow the lines. So when and where do I use this technique? People ask me sometimes. I do it with just about everything. I do it in color by number, non-color by number, hard books, easy books. I think that shading, while definitely I would say is like takes some just technique, time, and patience. Just like adding gel pen or highlight accents with my gel pens, it's just something that makes so much difference. It takes your picture kind of from just looking like, oh, okay, you colored it, to taking it to look like, wow, that's, it looks like you put effort into it when it really wasn't that much effort per se, which is like the vibe that I'm about. It's like the, how can I kind of get away with kind of being a lazy colorist in that sense. So here's for the orange, I'm going to kind of use a really dark orange color. Almost like a burnt orange. And you can see, like, even though the cap on this is brown, like, it's still pretty translucent, like the color. And so this is like got a really nice, like, orangey undertone, so it matches really nicely. And I mean, if you're nervous and you're like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable totally jumping in with this, or what colors would look good, I would encourage you, like, just take a scrap sheet of paper, draw a little swatch of the markers that you used, and that's what I did at the very beginning when I started doing this. I would draw, just swatch the markers that I used here, and then I would just draw a line over it with what I thought the kind of complementary darker color was, and you can see which one you like and which one you think would be best. And that might take a little bit of time, but it's nothing wrong with it. All of this is like super subtle, but it really, like, it starts to, as it comes together, it really makes the image just totally pop. Let's do. And so now that I've done this for like a long time, and I've kind of gotten used to the kind of colors that I like and the techniques that I like, with the outlining, it becomes a lot simpler to do. But at first it took a lot of, just practice and just kind of experimenting with things and figuring out what it is that I like. Okay, I need to go pretty dark on this. Is there a brown that's almost a black? Because I'm about to start working on this brown. These are probably my closest. I'm actually going to go in with a gray because I just think that this is gonna look like I said, sometimes you just have to use a gray because colors are so dark. And the gray is definitely showing up, so that's good. I just have to be a little bit careful to not get it into this kind of light brown color. And because you're just doing one line, like the thing I don't like about water markers is that they look really streaky. But with the brush that you're using on this, and then the fact that you're only doing like, you know, one line through something or kind of an outline, it doesn't look streaky, which is really nice. So a lot of my pages you'll see for my January finish are have this use of the water markers, the water brush markers. So if you have Crayola super tips, this would work well. You don't have to have a brush tip. I like using a brush tip for things like this because I feel like it gives a nicer stroke as opposed to kind of a different tip marker, but I do it even like on days that I'm totally just not wanting to spend a lot of extra time. I don't use brush markers. I use just whatever it is that I have out and available. So I want to do this kind of lighter. So I want to use a really dark, rich, maybe use that 94 again. I use it up here, but I'll use it down there too. The thing that I like about the outline technique too, so what I find is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Temi. Your name is Temi. She's on YouTube. She's an artist. She does a lot of portraits, like really beautiful, like a realism type portraits. It's like amazing. She's a legitimate artist. She's not just like playing around with coloring books and stuff. She's pretty phenomenal. Well, she always talks about getting past the ugly in a page. And that has really resonated with me. Gotta figure out what to do with this armadillo. That has really resonated with me because it's so true. There are some times that I pick or I start with a page and I'll start coloring and I'll be like, wow, I hate this color combination. Or I hate where the page is at. I don't think it's looking good. And what I largely find is that if I just finish the page, like if I just take the time and I legitimately just finish it, I'm usually end up happy with the end result. Not always. I mean, there are definitely some pages where I've just been like, Lauren, what are you thinking? But one of the things that I really think helps me get past that quote unquote ugly phase is doing this technique with this outlining for a couple reasons. A lot of time when I'm unhappy with a page, it has nothing to do with, you know, me actually just coloring it, but more so to do with the color choices that I've made, especially in a lot of non-color by number books, of course. Where the page just looks kind of flat, like it doesn't look like it has much depth. Well, once I do this technique, because you are doing these outlines, you are literally adding an additional color into the page. So you're adding a shade of something that wasn't in the original color palette that you used. And so with that additional color, it helps to meld and mold the colors a little bit more together. So for example, let's say you used mostly warm colors in your picture, and let's say maybe you used a lot of, you know, warm red tones, tans, browns, etc. And then you introduce this random color and it calls for a pink, and maybe you grab the wrong pink marker and you put like a really cool tone pink down, almost like that color pink. And you go, wow, that looks so out of place. Well, when you do your outlining of that area, what I will do is choose a warmer tone to do the shading. So instead of choosing another bright pink to do the outline, I may choose a warm red or a warm pink that has more yellow in it. And then all of a sudden, that item that was looking like it was too warm of a color meshes and molds very well into the color palette that I have. So I've kind of learned how to quote unquote like recover pages that I'm unhappy with using this method as well. And also, let's say maybe I go over the lines a little bit on something. Well, when you're using a darker color to go over, especially if you're using alcohol marker, you can cover it up pretty well. So like, for example, like up here, I actually have a little spot where I went over the lines. I could have chosen like a red or a deep orange alcohol marker and gone around that, and then you wouldn't have seen it as much. It would have been a little bit more disguised. Sometimes even when I make mistakes, adding in these details really helps. Or you can take your white gel pen, you know, or whatever, and fix some of that stuff. So I encourage you to, and maybe especially if you're a newer colorist, that I know things can be really intimidating, but like Temmie says, like, get past the ugly phase. You have to, there's every page you do is gonna have some of an ugly phase where you're gonna color it and you're just gonna go, oh my gosh, what did I do? So especially those that are non-color by number and you're making your own color choices. And I have, you know, a program and stuff that I've bought that's got a lot of color palette options and things, and it's wonderful. It's the Sarah Renee Clark one, but largely I don't end up having to use it anymore because I've just either learned colors that I like together, or it's just like because of this technique I've learned enough that I don't have to worry as much about my color choices. I kind of just go into a page and just go for it. And I've been able to make it work. So here you can see it now with the outlining. It feels a little bit more bold. It looks a little bit different. I wouldn't say this is as transformational of a page as what I have on a lot of other pages, mostly because there's a lot of dark colors in here, but I still really like how it turns out. So the only thing really left for me to do at this point are to put in some of those highlights, to put in some of the additional details that I really like. So I'm gonna do that with my Posca pen today. You have to shape these up really, really well. You know what? Maybe I won't do my Posca pen. I've kind of gone back to using my gel pens. My Uniball Signo gel pen, which is kind of my ride or die. And I have these on the faces of the parts of the cactus. I add a lot of highlights in areas that are pretty dark, just because you want them to stand out a little bit more. See, your white gel pen also adds a lot of detail and texture onto things when you need it. And so really can help to save a picture too. And so usually my go-to things with any of the pages that I color, and people have kind of definitely identified that, has been white highlights and shading are usually two things that people will see in my pages. And it's kind of become my thing, although many people do it, so it's not really my thing. I give a lot of credit to other YouTubers who I have watched over the years really show me how to do different techniques. Like, all of these things that I do are not things I taught myself. These are things that I learned from others. Now, I may use different supplies, like, you know, many of you know I love to use crayon, and that's not terribly conventional, but the outlining technique I really first saw a lot. I really first started doing it after I saw Nikki and Niagara do it. She's really the one who taught me a lot about that, and I had seen her use the technique and I was like, ooh, this looks really cool, I'm gonna try this. White gel pen work, I've seen a lot of people do it, but I will say, like, my color choices and the way that I like approach a page and the, you know, how I choose color and things like that, I will say that I think Jamie from Jamie's Coloring Love has been a really big influence on me. And she's a pretty phenomenal person too. I really try to choose YouTubers and people to watch as well that I feel have similar tastes, not only in books but in style. And people who largely like to use markers, because I don't like to use colored pencils a lot. I've gotten, I will say, a little bit more into it this year with using pencils. I actually have my Prismacolor sitting next to me right now. But that's been a very recent venture for me, and I do still go through phases where I largely prefer alcohol marker. What do I want to do here? Make a little pattern. And this one. I gotta be careful because, yeah, that white gel pen is not quite dry. I'm kind of making a mess and smearing it. Okay. All right, there we go. I think that is it for my little guy. I may end up putting some washi tape, some thin washi tape around the border, but I'll do that off camera because that's not terribly exciting. But yeah, that's it. That's gonna be my little guy. So thank you guys for joining me on my little venture today. I really enjoyed getting to catch up with you a little bit, tell you a little bit about what's going on in my life, and show you a little bit about the technique that I use with my coloring. I hope you all have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk again in my next video. Bye.